which NFL teams will get a lot worse next year and which NFL teams will get a lot better. We're going to discuss that and more on a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Let's roll, baby.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Football fans, welcome into a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. I am one of your hosts, Tyler Rowland, here with my other co-host, Alex Clancy, local experts from the Locked On Podcast Network, ready to break down some interesting topics that we have for you today. Number one, which NFL teams will get worse than what they were in 2022? Then, which NFL teams will get better? And as always, we will cap off the show with Alex's mystery segment. Before we get into all of that, I do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook is the official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started today. Also, thank you for making the Locked On NFL podcast your first listen every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, NFL content all year round on all platforms and always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed and stay subscribed to the Locked On NFL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. But Alex, because I thrive off negativity, we are going to start with which NFL teams will get worse in 2023. And I wasn't going to do this segment unless I had something to come out of the gate with swinging. And it's also very topical because one of the biggest parts of the news the last few days has been Mac Jones, the status of the Patriots quarterback. There are some rumors out there that say that Bill Belichick has been shopping him around, looking to trade him. We got some counter reports on Wednesday saying that maybe that's not necessarily true. Either way, I don't care. The Patriots are going to be worse in 2023. They went 8-9 in 2022. I don't see the Patriots as having gotten significantly better. They lose Jacoby Myers. They bring in Juju Smith-Schuster. I think Juju Smith-Schuster is less of a reliable player than Jacoby Myers. They bring in Riley Reif on the offensive line, Mike Gesicki. Nobody there can block, Riley Reif included. So I just don't like the moves that the Patriots have made in terms of them getting better as a team. There's more turmoil now with Mac Jones, him not seeing eye to eye with the coaching staff. Bill Belichick is another year older. And I think earlier in the year, in the offseason, they asked Bill Belichick why Patriots fans should be optimistic about this upcoming season. And he said the last 25 years. He is already moving into, hey, it's not what I'm about to do for you. Appreciate me for what I've done for you. And I think that's a bad sign. I think that this could be the last year of Bill Belichick in New England. I think Robert Kraft will be ready to move on after another turmoil-filled season where Bill Belichick puts his buddies on the coaching staff. I know they added Bill O'Brien at offensive coordinator. I don't think that's going to be enough. I don't like what they've done with the roster. I think the Patriots take a step back in 2023 from 8-9. I think they go anywhere from, 5-12 to 6-11.
Yeah, it's interesting with Belichick. We thought that many thought that with Greg Popovich, and he would retire after Tim Duncan and Tony Parker and everybody else retired, and he's coached for another 5 years. So I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think that at this point, he loves it. This is what he does. It's his lifeblood. I wouldn't be surprised if he coaches another 10 years. Whether it be with the Patriots or not, I don't know. I don't know if Bob Kraft would be like, you know what, go get it somewhere else. Go wear flower shirts like Andy Reid and go play somewhere warm, coach somewhere warm. But, yeah, and I mean, listen, as you were talking, I was going down, and I was like, as I was listening attentively, of course, there are half of the NFL is going to be worse this year than it was last year. Like, I counted 11 teams, and I'm going to give – so there's some low-hanging fruit, And then I'm going to talk about teams that I think will be worse, maybe not what people expect. So New England is going to be worse. Baltimore is probably going to be worse.
Yeah, especially
Tennessee is going to be worse.
Oh.
The Raiders are going to be worse. Philly's probably going to be worse record-wise. Washington Commanders will probably be worse than 8-1. The Vikings will be worse than 13-4-1. Green Bay is going to be worse than 8-9-1. Tampa Bay is going to be worse than 8-9-1. Like, that's 9 teams right there. The Cardinals and the Rams may be worse than 5-4 wins respectively. So that's 11 teams. Now, there's some obvious ones, with Tom Brady leaving and things like that. The big one for me is Minnesota.
Yep.
And the reason why is because, first of all, like, once Adam Thielen leaves an organization, it's like, okay. Adam Thielen was he was wide receiver 1 for a handful of years there. Okay, him and Stephon Diggs. Adam Thielen was the red zone threat, and Stephon Diggs was, the star child. He had, and he had massive plays for them. Kirk Cousins is about to turn into a pumpkin. Dalvin Cook is about to turn into a pumpkin. Mm-hmm. The defense, although has stayed, afloat, pumpkins all around. Now they've they've added pieces and stuff. But
Marcus Davenport and Byron Murphy, decent signings there.
But not right. But if they were both impactful enough, they would have been retained by their previous employer.
Right.
And because they weren't added but for that much money. Minnesota fulfilled something last year that nobody thought they could. Do it the entire regular season. Mm-hmm. And they did. And good for them. And then, that's it. But I think 11 wins, 12 wins, even though that division is going to be skewed talent-wise like we haven't seen in the better part of a decade, if not longer, with Aaron Rodgers probably not there anymore and Chicago on the rise and, Detroit definitely one of the more fun teams in football. But I think Minnesota's the one that's going to take the step back. That's the most obvious to me from 13-4 going back next season.
No, I agree. And that may be low-hanging fruit, but even before the all-season started, you definitely would have thought Minnesota did because everybody seemed to be on the same page last year that Minnesota was probably, by record, the most overrated team in the NFL. Nobody really believed that they were a 13-4 team. And what do you know? You get into the playoffs and wait, they're not a 13-4 team. So I think they were going to take a step back anyways. And I just don't see, I know that Thielen's maybe lost a step and same thing with Patrick Peterson's maybe lost a step, but just with some of the additions they made, like I mentioned, I don't think it's enough to keep them around where they were. I could see them being 9-8, 8-9 this year. And I know that we expect the Packers to maybe get a little worse, but hey, if Jordan Love comes in there, they save money on Rodgers, even a little bit. They're able to add some pieces. They get draft picks. They could be a little bit better. And Detroit, there's a good chance that Detroit makes some improvements. And the Bears, the Bears were 3-14 last year, 4-13. They finished the year on 10-game losing streak. I think there's a great chance that all the other teams in the division get at least a little bit better. Right. And then Minnesota was going to take a step back anyway, so you further that more. That's funny. I had them written down as my second team, so I agree with you there 100% with Minnesota. But we are going to be a little more positive. Now, which teams will get better next year record-wise? We're going to discuss that in just a moment. Before we do, want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. And with the NBA playoffs almost here, it is the perfect time to download FanDuel. New customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back, even if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use. You can bet on everything from the money line to the point spread to how many points a guy is going to score, how many three-pointers a guy is going to drain. And what I like is to add all that stuff together for a single game parlay. It gives you a chance to bet a little, to win a lot. I know Alex is excited for the NBA playoffs with Kevin Durant on a tear with the Phoenix Suns. Maybe the Suns and the Lakers could face off in the playoffs. That would be fun to bet on as well. Either way, make sure that you don't miss this chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Locked On NFL Thursday, Alex Clancy. Locked On Cardinals, Tyler Rowland. Locked On Titans, we make up Locked On NFL Thursday. Thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen each and every day, free and available on all the damn platforms. Teams that will regress in 2023 are way too early version before the draft. We'll definitely be doing this after the draft when we see rosters start to be built out. And now, as we go into Positive Town, a team that will be better than they were in 2022. Now, in 2023, as compared to 2022. And, just because teams have won 12 or 13 games in 2022 doesn't mean that they're not going to be better, that they're, not going to be better and, evolve a little bit more, whether it be with their free agency or draft, draft choices. Now, for me, Tyler, there is one who I think will 100% be better. And this is one where the quarterback is a truther focus of mine. And for those that have been listening to Locked On NFL Thursday for what? Is this going to be our third season coming up? I think so. Yeah, there are two gentlemen of whom I am truthers for. One, I am rescinding my trutherdom in Taylor Heineke. That was short-lived. I got excited again when he hit that pylon touchdown.
That was a great play, though.
Against Tampa Bay, it's like, you know what, you want Carson Wentz, that goober, or this guy? And then number two, who I've been the most trutherist of, is Jared Goff. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what they're going to do in the draft with Detroit at I think they're at 6. They may trade up to 3 with the Cardinals if they want to draft a quarterback. They may say, you know what, Jared Goff's our dude for another year. Fight to live another day with Dan Campbell biting kneecaps. And they were one of the most exciting teams, obviously, over the last 10 or 12 weeks last season, even though the defense was terrible. I think they're definitely going to take a step forward. They added David Montgomery. Is he a step up over Jamal Williams? I don't know. But they added David Montgomery, a more traditional running back to go with DeAndre Swift. They have Jameson Williams healthy now. DJ Chark went elsewhere, but they've got the makings of what's set to be a very, very fun team with an NFC North that is 100% up for the taking at this point. They finished 9-8. I think that they're the team for me where I'm looking at, if you ask me if they're going to win 9.5, if that's the line next year, I'm taking the over.
Yeah, I think 9.5 is high, but I definitely could see it. I think Detroit's progressing, and they just need a better defense, really. That offense, I mean, it's got firepower. Them keeping Ben Johnson as offensive coordinator may be like the most important move of the offseason so far for them for next year. So I like that pick a lot. I will tell you, the team that I'm looking at went 7-10 last year. They didn't have their starting quarterback for a big chunk of the year, and I like what they've done in the offseason. And that is the Cleveland Browns. Okay? I think the Steelers, we can only pick a couple of teams. I can't go through every team I think will get worse. I think the Steelers get worse. I think with the Ravens and what's going on with Lamar, the Ravens could be significantly worse. The Browns. I think Deshaun Watson gets back closer to the level of play we saw for him at the end of his tenure in Houston. More comfortability, starts the season, is with the team. I think he started kind of breaking out of that funk at the end of the year. I am just, say what you want about the off-field stuff. Separate the art from the artist for a moment. I think Deshaun Watson is absolutely phenomenal. Before all this stuff broke out and the story about the massages and his conduct and just his gross, nasty behavior, quite frankly. Regardless of that, when the man's playing his best football on the field, I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I'd take him over Lamar. I'd take him over Justin Herbert. Some of these guys that I'd take him over Trevor Lawrence. Some of these guys that people are falling in love with. So if you get top 5, top 6, top 7 quarterback Deshaun Watson, they added in Juan Thornhill at safety. They add in Elijah Moore. Jim Schwartz added as the defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Okoronkwo to add into the pass rush instead of Jadeveon Clowney. I just think that the Browns have enough talent on the roster with the O-line, Nick Chubb, David Njoku, Cooper, Moore, the defense getting pieces now and being better coached. I think the Browns have a chance to be a much improved football team this year, and I could see them going 9-8, 10-7, and getting one of those wild card spots because I think Cincy's winning the division.
Yeah, I like that. And I mean, Donovan Peoples-Jones is one of the more underrated wide receiver two lights, wide receiver threes. I like that, even though I loathe Deshaun Watson, what he allegedly did off the field. I think it just needs to be said. But yeah, Nick Chubb, like, imagine using Nick Chubb as an accent and not first and second option.
Right.
And that's something that would really just unlock everything because Kevin Stefanski's a good coach.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, folks, they were a 4th and 3 rollout by Chad Henne away from beating the Chiefs.
With Baker.
From being in the game. They wouldn't have lost. That clinched the game. I mean, they would have had turnover on downs in the middle of the field with a chance to win that game in the playoffs 3 years ago.
Yep.
So it's a far cry, and people have short memories, and that's interesting. And there is one more, and I think this is the lowest hanging fruit. Denver is going to be better. I mean, you just have to assume Denver's going to be better.
Yeah.
Last year, I don't know why they're fire sailing their wide receivers or trying to. Doesn't make any sense to me. If Jared Judy's that good, you keep him. I mean, if you're going to get a first round pick for him, you just keep him. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens in 2023, especially in the AFC North, NFC North, as we highlighted. Mystery segment next. I'm revisiting one that we talk about maybe twice a month. And I want to do real introspection because every second that this player is still on the current team that he's on begs the question, should he go somewhere else than where he's targeted to go as currently constructed of the landscape of the trade? Alex Clancy, Tyler Rowan, Locked On NFL Thursday. If that's not foreshadowing for you, I will shatter through that tease on the other side. Locked On NFL Thursday. It is Alex Clancy's mystery segment. This is the off-season segment that, as Tyler does Spirit Fingers, I wasn't really prepared for that for the Jazz.
Spiritual.
Tyler Rowland, Locked On Titans at Tic Tac Titans on Twitter. Alex Clancy, that's me. Locked On Cardinals at Clancy's Corner. Thanks for making Locked On NFL your first listen. We are Locked On NFL Thursday. Aaron Rodgers, and the reason why I talk about this, it's not out of laziness. We could talk about it's the NFL. We could talk about the new grass at State Farm Stadium for a segment and it'd be compelling. It doesn't really matter. But Aaron Rodgers went on Pat McAfee, 2 weeks ago? At this point, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
It feels like forever ago. Okay? He said he's not ready. He went into his dark pasture and then he came back, whatever. Aside from his complete and utter Uncle Rico blood just coursing through him, we know that in 82 you could throw a football a quarter mile. We know that.
Yeah.
And we know, did you know that he was also in the White Lotus? Uncle Rico. He was in the second one. He was the bald guy. Doesn't matter. Just total mind screw. Anyways. Should the 49ers trade for Aaron Rodgers? And before you answer, because you've said no every single time, and I've said no every single time, with his stock never lower since he was drafted 24th or whatever overall, 23rd overall in the draft. They have three quarterbacks. They have three quarterbacks on their roster right now,
right.
And Sam Darnold and the kids, Trey Lance and Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
The window to win in the NFL is 1 year. It's every year. That's it. Unless you have Patrick Mahomes, everybody's injury prone. Everybody's had an injury. Josh Allen's arm fell off. Joe Burrow, tore his ACL is rookie. Anything could happen. If you have Aaron Rodgers for the next 2 seasons and you trade away the absolute future for him, whether it be Trey Lance or Brock Purdy or whoever, I feel like, before you get to answer, I feel like they should now. It's shifted for me. It doesn't matter with culture because Aaron Rodgers, when he's winning, he's the happiest dude alive.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Everybody's happy when you're a front-loading guy and you have a good attitude when you're winning. You're a great leader when you're winning.
Yeah.
With how things sit right now, and I know they've got to work out the picks because they gave up a bunch for Christian McCaffrey also. If you trade for him, you're winning the Super Bowl 2 out of 3 years if everybody stays healthy, it seems, with that skill position group, that defense, and Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think that John Lynch has said you got to have as many quarterbacks as you possibly can, and they saw that happen last year. I think that one big factor in it, and it's like you're explaining, Rodgers' value is low in terms of trade market. If they could get number 13 overall from the Jets for Rodgers and call it a day, I think they would. But the Jets aren't willing to give up 13, in
No.
my opinion. I don't think they want to. And if you're not getting a first-round pick and you're going to get a collection of mid-round picks, well, then why do I have to send you to the Jets now anyways? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I know that Rodgers said he wasn't going to play for San Francisco, but to me, that sounds like a guy who doesn't care about winning a Super Bowl. Because if you really care about winning a Super Bowl, you want to stay in the NFC because the AFC quarterback group is just far superior than what they have in the NFC. So if Rodgers cares about winning a title and he's willing to rework his contract and all of that, and let's also, would Rodgers rather go back home to California and deal with the San Francisco media and live in California with the weather? Or would he rather go spend his winter in New York with that media group? I mean, just everything about the fit makes more sense in San Francisco. They're closer to a championship. They have an easier path to a championship. It seems like that would be a better place for Rodgers with weather and media. And you mentioned Christian McCaffrey. If you spent multiple picks on McCaffrey because you're all in for a title, then why not just take it a step further and go all the way in? And you could trade Trey Lance at that point for maybe a couple mid-round picks or maybe a mid-round pick, a third rounder, a fourth rounder to recoup some draft capital. You keep Sam Darnold around. You keep Brock Purdy, who may not even be healthy in time.
Right.
And San Francisco is seeing, hey, we want to have 3 quarterbacks because they can get injured. So I don't think that San Francisco is in a position where they can't make the move. And if you're Rodgers and you really care about enjoying your last 2 seasons while having a chance to win a championship, San Francisco makes way more sense than the Jets. So for me, I'm with you. I think depending on the price, of course, San Francisco has to explore it. And I'm sorry, but if Rodgers says he doesn't want to go there, then it just drives home the point about him not being as committed to winning as he is committed to his own personal benefit. And I think that's something that people think at this point. And it would be a great way if Rodgers went to San Francisco instead of New York and got to the playoffs and won. It would be way better for his reputation long term than going to the Jets and leading them to a first round playoff exit. So while I don't think it's going to happen, you do have a great point that it would make a ton of sense from both sides.
Now, because existentially, like right now, it didn't initially. Right now it does. And all San Francisco does is move mountains that people didn't think they could move.
Right.
The Christian McCaffrey deal never should have been even possible, but they made it happen. And and I've said this, and I'll continue to say this because this is what I think and what I believe, Tyler Rowland of Locked On Titans, is it's not pro-Jordan Love. It's anti-Aaron Rodgers. Right. So, you know what? You go to Brian Gutekunst and be like, pick one. Trey Lance or Brock Purdy. You got either. If you have the opportunity to flip Brock Purdy for Aaron Rodgers right now, you do it. Immediately. Brock Purdy's stock is never going to be higher than this second.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy had one of the greatest runs from a rookie quarterback in NFL history. If you have the opportunity to trade him for Aaron Rodgers for a Super Bowl win in the next 2 seasons, it's worth it. If you like Brock Purdy doing it again is like winning the lottery. There's no way that that's going to happen again. You know how it could happen. You trade for Aaron Rodgers. Or you say, you know what, you want Trey Lance? Take Trey Lance. Both of those guys are probably more talented than Jordan Love.
Maybe.
And you know what, say Jordan, again, it's not pro Jordan Love, it's anti Aaron Rodgers. And that's why they're so happy about Jordan Love.
Well, that may be the case, but you are anti Jordan Love is basically what I picked up. Saying Brock Purdy is more talented. I think Jordan Love has way more talent than Brock Purdy, but talent isn't everything. You know what I mean? One thing I will bring up about Purdy that makes me feel pretty confident that he can be good. It wasn't just 1 year flash in the pan. Did you see Daniel Jeremiah accidentally tip off some crazy information in the draft? They're doing a new test now outside of what was the old IQ test that they did for the NFL for a long time. They did that. Well, now they're doing something called an S2.
Wonderlic.
Yeah, the Wonderlic. Now they're doing something called an S2 cognitive exam, which basically it like flashes stuff on the screen and you got to touch it and it like measures quarterback's reaction. Daniel Jeremiah said that Brock Purdy had the highest score of any quarterback in the draft last year. He also divulged that Bryce Young had the highest score this year, which wasn't public information, but he let it slip. But with that being said, Brock Purdy's processing information, I think I have a little more faith that he can repeat it than before, but the injury throws a wrench in that. So I'm just saying the Packers may be willing to take on Brock Purdy, let him compete with Jordan Love, and get rid of Aaron Rodgers all at the same time.
I mean, here's the thing. Let's be real. And you can check out Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker, Locked On 49ers, because I argue with Brian. Like Brian and I, we never not argue. But that is Kyle Shanahan and the machine.
Yes.
People say that, oh, Tom Brady was a system quarterback. Shove it. Brock Purdy was the definition of a system quarterback who didn't, until he got hurt. He had to make 2 big throws a game. Everything else was tailored like Alex Smith with Jim Harbaugh when he was in San Francisco. 7 plays. That's it. That's all you're going to run. So going out in uncharted waters as Brock Purdy isn't exactly the same as doing it under the guise of Kyle Shanahan and that offense, with that offensive line, that defense, that rushing game, that tight end, that wide receiver. Like, give me a break.
With all that,
to take away
Aaron
from what
Rodgers.
He did it. Yeah, and you add Aaron Rodgers, they legitimately, and I think the 49ers, like, I loathe the fan base of the 49ers. I just do. It's the egomania of Silicon Valley, coupled with, like, Barry Bonds never, took steroids because in San Francisco with Joe Montana's better than Tom Brady. It's Looney Tunes. But Aaron Rodgers on the 49ers in a controlled environment would be absolute magic. Yeah. It just would be. And now when he's still a Packer, it's more looking like he's going to retire and wishing he took the Jeopardy job over coming back last year. I don't say that joking. I feel like he looks back, he would have rather taken the Jeopardy job than doing what he's doing right now.
Yeah. I mean, long term, it might have been more lucrative, and last year was pretty bad for his rep and all of that. So there is some validity there. But with that being said, that is going to do it for a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for your boy Q and Chris Carter breaking down all of the latest NFL news. That's going to do it for me, Tyler Rowland, and my co-host Alex Clancy. You guys be safe out there and get that weekend started early with a little Thirsty Thursday. Except for the kiddos out there, be responsible. With that being said, I'm out. See you guys.
Bye.